Everybody do me a hot favor and like this video. Help share PHNX Cardinals. We're back every day this week, dropping a pod, dropping a video. And I want to talk a little bit about yesterday. So Sean Payton watch is continuing on. LA Chargers had a loss yesterday. And so the Cardinals, unfortunately, take an L. And so that continues on. Sean Payton, very much interested in rejoining the NFL next year. Will he be an option for the Cardinals if the Cardinals move off of Kliff Kingsbury? Bo, you brought up the idea potentially of Jim Harbaugh coming to the Arizona Cardinals. Now, he mentioned yesterday in a presser, which means nothing, that he's committed to Michigan long-term, but he attempted to dip his toe in. Last year, the Vikings said no, which is laughable, frankly. Why would Jim Harbaugh be an option?
Why is it laughable?
That's laughable that the Vikings said no, thank you.
They've got 2 losses this season.
Okay, well,
they're doing all right, right?
They're doing all right. They made the pretty good decision on that one. So
they did. We're gonna see what Jim Harbaugh has like 700 in the playoffs, in the NFL playoffs, but Jim Harbaugh
he's been to a Super Bowl, and if it wasn't for, I would say, Beyonce's 45-minute halftime show, they may have won that.
The lights going out.
Yeah, the lights going out. I mean, just saying.
I mean, what he was able to do, he resurrected Alex Smith's career, a guy who was kind of labeled as a bust, his #1 overall pick. What he did with Kaepernick and taking him and developing his game. He was the quarterback of that Super Bowl team, and a couple of years after that, he was really one of the better signal callers in the league. The idea of him doing that with Kyler Murray, it should get you excited. As far as, you have to look at it. I mean, the reason Ian Rappaport brought it up on his Twitter feed, he said, one of the names to watch out is Harbaugh because the Colts job is open. And just like Michigan, there's somebody that Harbaugh played some of his professional years for. So, and you're going to have to compete with Irsay, who's willing to probably do whatever it takes if a guy like Harbaugh became available. So is it something that Bidwill wants to get in a negotiation into to outbid Harbaugh or Irsay for that? I think that'd be tough because the buyout at Michigan plus what he's going to command as far as his salary and the buyout you're going to have when you fire Kliff, that's a lot to get into it with.
He's a West Coast guy, used to live in San Diego, obviously coached at Stanford, coached for the 49ers. Like, hey, Jim, let's leave that Midwest weather. Come back out West. I think the Cardinals set up very favorably to that 2011, 2012 Niner team that he took hold of. Kyler Murray, first overall pick. That's a little bit underwhelming right now. That needs a reset. Not so much like Alex Smith, but, I had people coming at me.
More like Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick. Yeah,
well,
that's what I see similarities to.
People were like, well, he only runs a pro-style offense. I'm like, no, they literally changed their offense on the fly into the pistol what Kaepernick ran at Nevada. Like, you tell me with an offseason he couldn't help Kyler Murray and merge the two styles together? Absolutely. It's what good coaches do. It's what Kliff Kingsbury should have been doing last offseason. They should have been using him under center more, booting out, that kind of thing. But I also look, defensively, the San Francisco 49ers think they're getting Vic Fangio back to replace D'Amico Ryan if he gets a job. You could swoop in, you could get Fangio with Harbaugh, give him these linebackers, and allow him to go after Jed York because he is not happy about how things went down in the NFC West. And I know he's buddies with Irsay. That division is what it is, but you're never going to have the best quarterback. We think Trevor Lawrence is the guy. Houston Texans are about to have the first overall pick. Get Bryce Young, right? To me, you're in quarterback purgatory, and you're missing picks because you've traded picks for Wentz. You've traded picks for Matt Ryan. That job, that's a bad job. I'm sorry. That and the Broncos job are not favorable jobs. The reason that Cardinal fans should be cheering on the Chargers is they have Justin Herbert, and they've got an influx of cash because they live in Los Angeles, so they can maybe pay a little bit more if Dean Spanos wants to open up the checkbook, and they have all their picks. That's the situation the Cardinals are going to be in. The Cardinals are going to have disposable cash, but to your point, Bo, does Michael Bidwill want to pay up for a big-time head coach?
Johnny, why? I just want to throw this back. So why would he want to come to Arizona again? I mean,
West Coast, the team is talented. They have a quarterback. The Broncos are stuck with Russell.
You just made a hell of an argument for the Chargers.
we need the Chargers to continue winning. That's why it's important. Brandon Staley gets his act together.
Who do you guys think is a better fit, Harbaugh or Payton?
Payton.
Yeah, I think Payton's your guy, right? Just because he is truly available. He's not going to be somebody you're going to have to really pry away from.
And he has history with the team.
He has history with the team. Yeah, he's got his camp days, looking up at the stars, hanging out in Chicago, in Illinois. Probably got his first kiss while he was a ball boy. I don't know. Going way back. For whatever reason, people believe the nostalgia is going to open up the doors for the Arizona Cardinals. But sure, if you have an in, if you have access to him, then absolutely make it happen. Figure out what the compensation would be for with the Saints. But it's the same thing. Like, and Michael Bidwell has to be willing to pay whatever it takes for one of these guys, because I think, if either one of them is available, and if both of them, then you've got a good problem in your hands. You have to be willing to pay what it's going to cost to do it. Just like Kyler, keeping Kyler in-house, you had to pay top dollar for what the market was going to present his contract for. So he showed he was willing to do that. Now he's got to be willing to couple with him the coach that can take Kyler from good to great.
Michael Bidwell also has to feel the pressure of something that I don't think is talked about enough. You get a coach next year in this shit division with Kyler Murray. You need to be expected to compete and to win and make the playoffs next year. The expectations in 2023, you can't have a mini rebuild after a single-digit win season and a top 10 draft pick. When you have a quarterback that's making this much money, the expectation is back to the playoffs. Enough dicking around, enough screwing around, back to the postseason in the form of a wild card or hopefully the division. You can't hire Joe fucking Schmo, offensive coordinator from wherever, and think, I got a postseason berth ready to go. There are two coaches that can help you do that. Jim Harbaugh, who's a proven winner, ass kicker at every level, and Sean Payton. So if Michael Bidwell wants to be taken seriously and with his fan base, assuming they move off Keim and Kliff Kingsbury, and you get the fan base energized again to come and pack, God help us, State Farm Stadium, and you rebrand and you do all this stuff, but then you hire like Dingleberry, offensive coordinator from the Philadelphia Eagles, like you could easily be terrible again next year. There are guarantees on the coaching market in the form of Harbaugh and Sean Payton that everybody would say, yeah, I can see that. Yeah, definitely. You're going to make the playoffs next year.
Right. I agree, because I think what they have is a proven track record of being leader of men, right? And also having these professional relationships with their players, their quarterbacks, like where they're stern and where they're not going to take, less than 100% effort on and off the field for their team. And I think, what Peyton was able to do with Breeze, or even when he didn't even have Breeze, when he was dealing with a bunch of injuries, when he was able to do with Teddy Bridgewater.
Always competitive.
Yeah, always. Yeah. I mean, they had some solid teams. And I think also what both of them would bring is something that Kliff never brought to the table. What BA brought to the table was he had relationships around the league, not just with coaches, but with players. And like when players went down, when you were seeking, like you had to fill a hole on an offensive line, or you need a linebacker, it's like, oh, well, this guy's available. We know what he can do. He knows our scheme a little bit. Like we never had that with Kliff here. Those guys definitely have it, whether it was, Harbaugh coaching at Michigan or his past jobs with San Francisco. I think that both those guys, if you can get one of those two guys, I think that's your best bet.
It's a franchise changer. You hit the lottery.
Yeah.
No, it is, guys. But I also have to think think about the context in which Kliff came into. When you're bringing a college coach into a professional football organization, Keim is going to be running the show. You know what I mean? He put together the coaching staff. He was probably in charge of player personnel. I guarantee you, Kliff is in charge of on-the-field duties, and Keim is in charge of off-the-field. And I guarantee you that's how the relationship was started. But if you get a guy like Sean Payton or you get a guy like Harbaugh, you're going to have to relinquish some of those duties because, to your point, Johnny, if you have a guy that has relationships across the league, you have a guy that has credibility, amongst his peers across the league, you're going to have to give up some of that power. And as Bill Parcells said, if you want me to cook but I can't shop, that might be a problem.
Well, and I think that to me, if I'm Jim Harbaugh, that's exactly why I don't want to go to Indianapolis, because that owner meddles. We've seen it. And also, like picking a quarterback, your options are going to be limited. You've used so many resources. Like at least with Kyler is here. He's not going anywhere, presumably. And if you're sold on this job, then you're sold on Kyler Murray, and everything else takes care of itself. The roster, you can churn over a roster in 18 months, assuming you have the quarterback in place. It's a head coach quarterback league. Nothing else matters. Nothing else is even worth a point in Vegas.